Hey everyone, today I want to talk to you about a company that has been a staple in the Midwest for nearly 2 decades, Gruber Portable Storage. If you're in need of quality storage solutions, look no further. Whether it's a barn, shed, or garage, Gruber has the largest selection of handcrafted storage structures in all of Indiana. Each building is made with care by experienced craftsmen, ensuring you get a product that not only looks great, but is built to last. And guess what? They stand by their workmanship with a fantastic 5-year warranty. What sets Gruber apart? It's their commitment to customer satisfaction. From the moment you step into one of their many locations, their friendly team is ready to help solve your storage issues. Plus, they deliver up to 250 miles from their main office in Montgomery, Indiana. So if you live in Ohio, Kentucky, or Illinois, you need to give them a call. Now, let me tell you about the heart behind Gruber Storage. It all started back in 2000 when they began building sheds full-time. The founder grew up helping his father construct barns with just gas-powered skill saw and a lot of determination. Today, Gruber has grown into a full-fledged operation with dedicated staff, but that personal touch still remains. They treat every customer like family. So if you're ready to find perfect storage solution, visit Gruber Portable Storage. They have Indiana locations in Bloomington, Seymour, Vincent, Spencer, Corydon, West Lafayette, Sellersburg, and Kokomo, and even Tilton, Illinois. So you'll never have to go too far for quality storage. And hey, we got a deal for you today. If you mention you heard it from the podcast, Gruber's will give you $150 off your barn purchase. That's right. You save $150 off your purchase by just mentioning you heard it here on the podcast. So check out their website at gruberportablestorage.com. That's gruberportablestorage.com to learn more and find your nearest location. Trust me, when you choose Gruber, you're not just buying a shed, you're investing in quality craftsmanship and service you can rely on.
Let me begin. While there's still ink left in my pen, I'm set to contend. For truth, you can bet will offend. Deception within the church, man, who's letting them in. We talked about this years ago. Let's address it again. Yeah, and I ain't really trying to start beef, but some who claim to be part of the sheep got some sharp teeth. And cats get mean when you criticize them. But Jesus told us Matthew 7:16, we can recognize them.
This show is brought to you by Zach's Creamery in Montgomery or Jasper, Indiana. Zach's Creamery was founded with creating a pleasant and memorable experience in mind. They strive to serve the most exceptional homemade ice creams and signature coffees in an exuberant atmosphere. Zach's has something for everyone, as he features several items for those with special dietary needs such as vegan, dairy-free, gluten-free, and no sugar-added, keto, diabetic friendly. Visit them today in Montgomery or Jasper, Indiana. You can dine in or drive through, but whichever way you choose, do not forget you can order online and have it waiting for you when you get there. Order online at zaxcreamery.com. That's Zach's Creamery, Z-A-X Creamery.com, and stop in at Montgomery or Jasper, Indiana. Is how you spend, save, and invest your hard-earned cash glorifying the Lord? Well, at Dominion Wealth Strategists, they believe that your finances should reflect your faith. As a distinctly reformed full-service wealth management firm, they are here to help you steward God's gifts wisely. From comprehensive financial planning to wealth-building strategies rooted in biblical principles, they offer their core services with no financial barrier to entry. Whether you're planning for retirement, building generational wealth, or just getting started, Dominion Wealth Strategists are here to guide you every step of the way. From baptism to burial, Dominion has you covered. Visit them at reformed.money. That's reformed.money, and take the first step toward financial stewardship that honors Christ. That's reformed.money. Please visit them today. Hello and welcome to the TC Cook Show on the Clearly Speaking Network. We are here at the Dangerous Friends Conference, and we are bringing in so many dangerous friends to talk to get to know. And right now we have on the show the infamous Seth Gruber. If you've heard of the 1916 Project, if you've watched that documentary, it's phenomenally done. You've got to go see it. It's on X. It's on other things.
Not anymore. We premiered it September through early November.
That's how I saw
on
it.
Twitter,
on
X.
Yeah.
And we got about 11 million views between the Spanish and English version. And then we pulled it, and now we're very close to coming to some deal with distribution partners of where it's going to stream. But any church in America can still go to the 1916project.com and they can host a screening for their people, or like an organization or a ministry, but largely churches. So we've had over 1,000 churches screen the film around the country since the second half of June.
It's fantastic. So, It's fantastic. And Seth, we're gonna dive into a bunch of things that he's working with, he's a part of, what he does, and I'm just excited to have you on the show.
Thank
I really
you, man.
am. So appreciate you being here too. He gave
fun.
Fantastic talk. I mean, I was in the podcasting room, but I was talking to my staff out there, and they said, dude, we laughed, we cried. It was an emotional roller coaster. It was ups and downs. And they literally, one guy said, like, I'm so wore out because of how much information I got, and he said it was just incredible. And so you did a great job on that talk. So appreciate you. Thank you for coming on the show, and let people kind of know just a little bit about you, and maybe even some upbringing stuff, but how you became doing documentaries and going out and being I would say the loudest voice for the pro-life movement.
Yeah, I was raised in Southern California, Los Angeles County.
That explains everything, right?
Behind enemy lines, right? So I grew up around the gay communists, and but I mean, back then, honestly, though, it was a little bit more normal. Growing up in the 90s and the early 2000s, you could actually be friends with people who were pro-choice, and they didn't want to throw you in a gulag.
That's right.
You know what I mean, or ruin your life. And then that started deteriorating pretty quickly. I would say around like 2012, 2013, I think, like, the civility, not in our politics. Our politics has been toxic for a long time.
Sure.
The civility just amongst Americans with different viewpoints started to decay over the last 15 years a lot. And so I was homeschooled, and then I went to public high school because I wanted to.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm a huge fan of homeschooling. I'm a huge defender of it. I just wanted a bigger social scene. I wanted to be a sports jock. So I went off to Whittier High School in Whittier, California. They say where the girls are prettier, but not really. And this is actually Nixon's alma mater.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. Yeah.
And I did my senior project on abortion. You had to pick a topic, research paper, a speech, and field work hours to graduate, actually.
Sure.
So I picked abortion because I realized I didn't have a lot of good answers to a lot of my pro-abortion friends. And but the high school told me, you can't pick the topic of abortion for your senior project. And so I said, here's a copy of the Constitution you're making me read in government class. I recommend you read it, or you're going to have a lawsuit on your hands.
Oh, okay.
So at 18 years old,
so you've been like this for a while.
I threatened to sue my high school for viewpoint discrimination.
Yeah.
They backed off, and I did whatever the heck I wanted to do.
Right.
It's an important lesson that sometimes it just takes one or two people standing up and willing to look the Faustian, tyrannical little dwarves in the face and say, you know what, sit down.
Yeah.
And they often do because it's just the appearance of strength.
That's right.
And then I went off to a fake Christian college in Santa Barbara, California called Westmont. It was started by people who left Biola. And by the way, I would tell people not to send their children to Biola anymore either.
Right.
There are good people there, but the leadership isn't.
Right.
And that's the same thing true of Westmont.
Right.
Turns out there's pro-abortion professors on the faculty at Westmont College in Santa Barbara, and I didn't know that. And I am as a freshman thinking I'm going to a great Christian college.
Right.
And so
probably excited to be around like-minded people. You're thinking that, right? Like, hey, I'm amongst my friends here. We're good.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
And of course, I had lots of like-minded friends, but
sure.
I watched probably 20 to 30% of the freshmen in my class that I met the first month who were all like-minded. I watched them turn into progressive, Obergefell, gay marriage, pro-abortion voting Democrats over 3 years. Yep. And I'm like, I remember looking at one of my friends that we remained acquaintances, but we were in different friends group. I'm like, when we became friends the first month, you meet all these people your first month of college, right? You're just like a social butterfly.
Yeah.
I was
well,
like,
you are.
Like, you were the sweetest, like, pro-life.
Yeah.
Like,
What happened
you
to
know,
you? Yeah.
what happened to you?
Yeah.
You know, and this is a Christian
You're talking
college,
about
by the way,
you're talking
right?
about 30 days.
This is not UC Berkeley.
Yeah.
This is Westmont College,
Gosh,
whose
dang
motto
it,
is
Seth.
Christ preeminent in all things. Christ preeminent in all things.
That's their motto.
And so it took me a full semester to find a faculty advisor to get my pro-life club approved. And then I found out that there were pro-abortion professors, several of them. Some of them are still there. So I started making a big stink. And my junior year, I held abortion photos of mutilated, aborted children killed in the first and second trimester on signs right outside of the dining commons. And I did this for days on end. And the administration came out and they were like, "Did you get approval to do this?" And I said, "No, because I'm here as a tuition-paying student exercising my right to free speech. My club is not here. This is not a club event, so I don't need approval from student government." And after 2 hours of debating with them, they admitted that I was not breaking any rules. And I have it all on a GoPro because I was wearing a GoPro.
That's awesome.
And they say, "But we feel like you're disrespecting us." And I said, "I feel like you're disrespecting the murdered unborn babies who are probably killed at a higher rate by female Westmont students who attend your university than by anywhere else in Santa Barbara because of your unwillingness to lead on this issue." And so that's the second lesson I learned that I've taken with me today, and it's part of the tone and tenor of our ministry, the White Rose, is that the problem is far less evil Anthony Fauci, Klaus Schwab men out there.
I know where you're going.
The problem is far more good, quote unquote, men who know better, who know better, Christians who do nothing and who make peace with evil. That is far more of a problem for why we got to this point in our civilization.
And the Bible says that exact same thing, that's far more the problem.
Yeah, that's right. Well,
like
so Schaeffer has this great line. He says, "The ignorance of the church is more dangerous for a culture than the decadence of the world." And I think that's proven true more so in the last few years than ever before. So that's how I got into the fight. That's the background of all this. And then, you said, how did I start making documentaries? I mean, I just realized that no one really knows the history of Planned Parenthood. And you can't really deal with the history of Planned Parenthood, by the way, without dealing with cultural Marxism, the sexual revolution. Like, it all is one witch's brew, actually. And so we just started... I just kind of went down that rabbit hole a few years ago, and then we turned it into a film and a book called The 1916 Project.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's awesome. So the way you talk with such clarity and vigor, right? I think that's fair to say, right? Yeah, and passion right behind it is actually super attractive. Like people actually desire that. They want that. I don't know if you ever saw, there was like a TED Talk years ago, but a guy gets up, they show this video, a guy gets up at like a Woodstock-ish type concert, right? He's outside in the grass. And he starts dancing. Nobody's dancing. There's nobody, right? And then he's just dancing. And it takes probably about a minute or two of him dancing. Then there's like another guy comes up beside him and he starts dancing. And then all of a sudden, everybody starts to dance, right?
That's awesome.
And literally, it does take the courage of one to ignite something where people actually then say, "Hey, I see what this person's doing, and that means I could do it too," right?
That's a good
and
point.
Because there's a lot of people who have the same ideas, probably have the same viewpoint, probably are like in their homes with their wives or their spouses are like, "This is horrible. This is this, right? Why are we?" And yet they're not out doing what you're doing, and then they see you and they're like, "Well, how can I get involved?" Right? I'm sure you've come to a lot of that, right? And I think from what I've gathered from you too is like the ultimate goal for you is that the church is involved. Right? And it's not just getting the one-offs, which you're fine with, the people who are going to church members or whatever, and they're saying, "Hey, I would love to come help," or "I'd love to," but it's actually saying, "No, I want the church as a whole to actually stand up for what the Bible is saying about abortion," right? So with all that, I think of just a few years ago, and I think of Louisiana. I'm sure you know where I'm going with this. And it seemed like in our country, because we just had Roe v. Wade, right, all this stuff, we're at the goal line for abolition, right?
Oh, I remember this, yeah.
And Louisiana seems like, I mean, Jeff Durbin's doing videos, and he's like, "Guys, we're there. Like, we got them. Like, they're ready to. It's done. We're going to do this." And then within like 8 hours, he says, they flipped. And he claims that.
By the way, partially due to Russell Moore and the ERLC.
That's where I'm going. And but not just them. There's some pro-life organization, quote unquote. We're going to put quote pro-life organizations that
capitulate.
That said we can't go all the way. We've got to hold back.
Which is so strange to me because
we were there. Were we not at the goal line?
Belief is that like the unborn child is equal in dignity and equal in their right to life as any infant or toddler. So it's always strange to me that people who have pro-life organizations and wear the pro-life label aren't willing to make the really simple next step of so they should have the same legal protections. And so if you believe the unborn child is the same in dignity and value, then of course the next thing you should say is that they should be protected, which means that they should be legally protected.
Right.
Which means you pass a law.
Right.
So what's going to be in that law to protect the babies that you say are the same in dignity and right to life as any infant? And then pro-life organizations completely cave. A bunch of organizations just wrote a letter less than a year ago to North Dakota telling Republican legislators to not pass any form of equal rights protection.
That's crazy.
And those were groups like Concerned Women for America, Students for Life of America, the March for Life organization, Susan B. Anthony list. And you're like, wow, that's wild.
So I honestly, and I'll be honest with you, I'm not deep into those organizations enough to know really exactly why they're doing it. Because here's the thing, they're not going to work themselves out of a job.
Well, I'll tell you why. They say it's because women have been lied to.
Yeah.
And so because they've been lied to and they just didn't know it was a baby and they didn't know.
You might have been able to get that argument like 30 years ago.
I don't support retroactively punishing anyone.
Okay, explain
that. And I've never met anyone who does. What I mean is, okay, now abortions, let's say Oklahoma, right?
Oh, you're saying like
abolishes abortion and there's penalties.
5 years ago, someone
but you got an abortion when it was legal.
No,
I've hardly met anyone that supports that. What
I've
I'm
never
talking
heard that
about
to even
is
be an
now
argument.
that it's illegal.
Right. Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
But many pro-life organizations will say, no, even now that it's illegal, there shouldn't be any form of legal consequences for breaking the law because, women have been swimming in this sort of these cultural waters of deception for decades.
Seth, they don't believe that, do
it's
they?
not a baby.
Yeah.
And so, they were fed a lie.
Yeah.
And so even though I know we told them it's now against the law, but if they do break the law, we think that they should get off scotch-free. So let's only go after the abortion.
That's like hey, if you drink and drive, you're gonna get a ticket. But we just passed that, so we've got to give you like 10 years to realize that drinking and driving is right. Like, but for me, I don't think they actually really believe that. I really don't. I think they know that's a super emotional play that they can use to keep something.
Some people think that,
and is it power?
that they're afraid to lose donors and political clout. But
typically, if it doesn't make sense, it always tracks back to money, right, or power, right? It does. Yeah. But to me, I don't think their role gets done away with because now we're going to have single moms, right, who need support and help because they are giving birth to a new life, right? And so we have to have help. We will, until the Lord comes back, we're going to have people to help with that, right? And so, but that was the play in Indiana. That's where I'm from. I was talking to the state legislature, like, yeah, but I just can't see sending a mom to jail for doing that. And I'm like, well, interestingly, you called her a mom, right? Interesting, right? And I was like, and because the same thing, they don't know. Listen, social media is full of abortion parties. Social media is full of women saying, this is my 10th one, right? You can't tell me that they don't know. I mean, there's just no way. Yep. There's just no way.
This is why we need the church, right?
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
So, politicians aren't going to fix this problem. The local church can and will.
Right.
And that's why at the White Rose Resistance, everything we do is focused
on
educating,
more about that.
mobilizing, inspiring, and awakening the church. And that's why I do church tours. That's why we did the Life or Death conference the day before the March for Life in D.C. in January.
Yeah.
That's why I'm doing the Last Stand event on June 21st in Southern
California. Talk about June, right? June's a big thing
it's
for
Rainbow
White Rose
Pride Month, but it's also Life Month. It's when Roe got overturned.
That's right.
And I got overturned on June 24th, which in the church calendar is the Nativity of St. John the Baptist.
Right.
So it's like when Mary goes to visit Elizabeth and you get the 2 babies. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And so we're declaring June as Life Month.
That's right.
And we're gathering people like Steve Dace and Pastor Jack Hibbs and David Harris Jr. and Riley Gaines and an incredible lineup of speakers in June to worship, to mobilize, to inspire, to repent, and to get people to go home and host life marches in their city. In 2025 and 2026 for next year. So we have thousands of churches around the country. 250 years
America, right? So it's right before that, because July 4th is coming, right?
That's right.
Fantastic.
To host these life marches in your downtown city square.
Right.
Thousands of churches all around the country declaring June Life Month. And getting the church back engaged. And so, anyways, that's what we're up to.
It's fantastic. And Seth, I'm telling you, like, it's not easy. It's difficult work. It's ditch digging work, right?
Right.
And it's getting people to mobilize is tough. And because you're calling them to get off the couch, right? To get out of the comfort of their own home and the fence in the backyard where nobody can see what you're doing, and to actually make a stand to where everybody can see what you stand for. And the moment you do that, you will hit resistance. And but as you push through that resistance, as you've probably known, you actually start to find a lot of like-minded people, right? A lot of people who said, I agree with you. I just have never said it, right?
Totally.
And now they're willing to say it, right? And now, again, lots of resistance. I'm sure your inbox and everything else, and maybe your house is full of it, right? And people trying to find out, but it's worth it for the truth.
That's right.
And this is what the Dangerous Friends Conference is about. It's saying, hey, when you actually articulate the truth and you stand on principle, this is why I think the pro-life, quote unquote, large organizations and stuff don't necessarily seem to take it all the way, is because there's principles that they're not willing to stand on that are biblical principles. This is why churches are scared to talk about it, is because they're not principled. This is why governments are not, like, people in legislation. Like, there are good Christian men who are and women who are elected senators and all this stuff, right? Yet they won't go that far because they don't have the principles, and so they're swayed by some cultural things, right? And this is how you're trying to mobilize people, saying, hey, there's biblical principles, we all have read them, we know them, it's time to stand on them and to proclaim them, right? Amen. Is that fair to sum it up like that? So
we need to rebuild Christian resistance in the West and in America
Black
before
Robe
it's
Regiment,
too late.
Right? Before it's too late. And would you agree, though, that the culture has seemed to taken a shift in the last couple of years? Now, I think a
lot of people are waking up to some of the insanity. I think 2020 helped with that. I think 4 years of Biden helped with that. Now is the time for resistance and reformation.
Isaiah Butterfield said, but be careful with this shift, that we're not just cutting off the ears, but we have to cut off the head. And I thought that was really well said, because I feel like sometimes we're just trimming it. And I'm like LGBTQ. Well, we're not really keen on the T anymore, right? But the LB and the G, we can deal with that, right? And which all that does is actually make it more palatable for the near future going forward, true. Right? And we need to watch that. And that was what she was talking. It was great. And same thing with abortion, right? Hey, we're going to send it back to the states. I think that's great. That's great. The state should stand up, right, and do this. However, the problem is the state said, well, we'll do it up until 9 weeks. Or we'll do it up until, right? And they have these things, and it's like, okay, we're just kind of pacifying the truth is what we're doing.
Well,
Seth, where can people find you at?
TheWhiteRose.life for our website, anywhere on any of the social media platforms. The1916project.com to host a screening of the film at your church, and then thelaststand.com to get a ticket and join us on June 21st in Southern California.
Guys, if you want your church to be mobilized, if you want them to stand up for truth, against abortion, for life, get a hold. Go to his website. Go check him out. Reach out. There's information. There's all this stuff, and then even do the showing of the 1916. You will not. I mean, I'm telling you, your whole congregation will benefit from the history lesson of what the 1916 Project does. So go check that out. As always, guys, we appreciate you. We love you, Seth. Thank you so much for being on.
Thank you, bro.
We'll see you next time.